James Bond, the fictional spy, has had an incredible influence on menswear. In this video, I'll be looking at the 6 Bonds and picking my favourite look from each of them. So as a stylist and previously as a menswear designer, James Bond has had a huge influence on my career because it's the biggest tailored cultural icon, certainly of the last 50 years. And as I've got more into menswear when I was younger, you look back at the Bond films, you start to notice the detail, and there's such incredible sartorial detail which really captures the moment. And yeah, I think James Bond has been a positive effect on men's tailoring. It's certainly a British icon. I don't think we've always made the best out of it, but still an important icon. There's so much to talk about Bond, but for this video, what we're going to do is take each of the 6 Bond actors and chronologically go through them, chat a bit about their style, and I'm going to pick my favourite look from each of the main actors. So starting with Sean Connery, I guess most people's favourite Bond. Certainly when I was younger, we'd had the conversation, who's the best Bond. Sean Connery would always say he was the original, so he must be the best, and he's the one we always compare with. And of course, whenever somebody's new to the role, you tend to look at the last one and then go back to the original. He had a great style, but of course he was from an era when everyone was wearing suits and the general appearance of people was very smart. If you look at any actor in the early Connery films, they're all dressed very elegantly. From a stylist point of view, I'm not actually a fan of his look in Dr. No, and I'm not really a Dr. No fan. I find it hasn't aged that well. I think his suit he wears in Goldfinger, the 3-piece Prince of Wales check, is my absolute favourite. I remember as a salesman on Savile Row many years ago, if a customer came in and said, I want a suit, and he goes, what would you like? And they start to describe it. You go, do you mean the Goldfinger suit? I go, yeah, that's the one. There's such an enthusiasm for it. It's such an iconic suit. It's a 3-piece Glen check, very subtle Glen check. Depending on the video you're watching, on the film you're watching, it's very subtle. It's 3 pieces, 2-button. The waistcoat has these lovely lapels on it. It's got quite slim lapels on the jacket. It has a ticket pocket, side vented. And the trousers are in the old-fashioned sort of Savile Row style with the double pleats and turn-ups. And it just looks so elegant. And if a customer came to me now as a stylist and said, I love that suit, it's quite an obtainable style. I think a 3-piece Prince of Wales check suit can kind of suit anyone. If it's tailor-made, even better so. But I think that's very much a achievable look. And of course, even on a simpler level, if you're looking to have that sort of early Bond look with the dark tie and a squared off hanky, it's a nice nod to the look without being cosplay or costumey. So on Her Majesty's Secret Service, the only Lazenby Bond film, probably my second favourite Bond film, was my favourite for a long time. Didn't like it as a kid because I liked the gadgets of Moore and Connery, but in my 20s when I got into menswear, I loved it. I loved the music, it's got the best Bond girl, and I would say overall the best tailoring. I think it's from an era I find the most interesting, that sort of late 60s, early 70s, so we're not seeing the huge lapels of the 70s, but we are seeing slightly wider lapels. We're also seeing that crossover period of style is actually reflected in Lazenby's wardrobe. So you've got 3 buttons, you've got 2 buttons, you've got double-breasted. It's really interesting. But the item I'm going to choose as my favourite Lazenby look is his 6-button blazer. Very befitting of somebody ex-Navy, naval commander, and I have an affection for it because when I first became a buyer designer back in the 2000s, one of the first things I put into my collection was a Lazenby blazer, which was a blatant copy of the one in the film. It was always lovely to have that sort of power to put something off the shelf in a 3x3, not dissimilar to what I'm wearing today. Lovely suits, fantastic hacking jacket, but I'm going to pick the blazer for Lazenby. Now the style of Roger Moore is really interesting because I've seen it go full circle. Of my age, when I was in my 20s, in the 90s, looking back to the 70s, the clothes looked funny. The flares, the big lapels, the huge knots. And then as fashion changes, you look back at it more and more and see actually how stylish it was. So it does come full circle. And he did wear some beautiful, beautiful tailored suit, very well cut. He has very broad shoulders and you can just appreciate the tailoring knowing what I know now. Some of his casual wear hasn't dated as well as his tailoring. And when I was a salesman on Savile Row, just because I could, just because it was my nature. If customers came in, I'm looking for a James Bond look, I get very excited and start talking about the safari suits. My favourite outfit of his is his double-breasted Chesterfield overcoat he wears in New York in Live and Let Die. I know timeless is a word we're using a lot now in menswear, but that hasn't looked bad in the last 40, 50 years. So I would say his double-breasted, beautiful, probably cashmere Chesterfield coat just always looks appropriate, and I think it's a great look. And again, very, very obtainable. If someone wants that look, you can achieve that, and having a beautiful overcoat, and I've spoken about coats before, it's something every gentleman should have. It's a really lovely, luxurious investment piece, and it hasn't dated. And that's an example of looking back at the Bond films of thinking, like, what is classic clothing? And has any time in the last 40 years has that overcoat looked bad? No, it is truly elegant and timeless. So next up we have Timothy Dalton, who starred in 2 Bond films in the late 1980s. I've never been asked by anybody to emulate a look from the Dalton films. Looking back at the films, they're my least favourite films. I really want to like them because I like Timothy Dalton as an actor. He was amazing in Flash Gordon, but I just can't get into the films and the style, and it's just not, it doesn't really resonate with me. For completeness, I will pick a look, and I really respect the fact he wore the black knitted tie, which is a nod to the earlier Connery films, but also heavily referenced in the books. So after the Dalton era, there was talk that was Bond still relevant? Would the film series continue? And then there was a big announcement for Pierce Brosnan. And a lot of the talk at the time was to really bring the style back. Now, Pierce Brosnan is an absolute clothes horse. He always looks great in his suits, whether he's in a film or whether he's in his personal life. He just has that body and just knows how to wear a suit. It just hangs on him. He just has that lucky skill of just looking great in suits. Controversially at the time, his suits were made by Brioni, which was an Italian brand. And I think it was interesting because then that sort of mid-90s London, we were very pro-British. There was lots of English tailoring going around. And to go to an Italian brand, although with British cloth, was seen as quite controversial. But I guess from my point of view, it gave me a fresh look at Italian tailoring. I'd always seen it as quite baggy and fashionable, sort of like Dolce & Gabbana and Armani. And then to see beautifully sculpted Roman tailoring from Brioni, it changed my point of view. Of course, his shirts and ties and his shoes were still English, but that sort of combination of Italian-English style, and he realised they're not always that far apart, and they blend beautifully when done elegantly, and still true today. I'm going to pick the dinner jacket from Tomorrow Never Dies from '97. Every Bond film has a black tie moment, and this is just a celebration of tailoring craft. Beautifully tailored, every detail is spot on, but the vest, the waistcoat, is just stunning. The way it just sculpts his chest and the unusual buttoning configuration for the tailoring nerds out there is just perfect. So yeah, I think Brosnan in the black tie outfit, perfect. And finally we have Daniel Craig, my favourite Bond actor. I think he really captures the role, and when I hear him speak, it resonates to the voice I heard when reading the book. So I'm a Daniel Craig fan. My favourite one is Casino Royale. I think that is such an exciting film. From a tailoring point of view, nothing really excites me. I think the dinner jacket scene in Casino Royale is fantastic, and I love that dinner suit, and it's just become quite iconic. But generally, we're of an era when suits were getting quite tight, and the Bond franchise always captures the zeitgeist, and it followed suit, and a lot of the clothes, to my eye, just looks a little bit too tight. But where I feel that the style of Daniel Craig really excelled was in his casual wear, and it was the first Bond where I felt his casual wear was better. You've got the fantastic polo shirt, you've got the trunks, and then you've got the cardigan. Now, you have to be realistic as a stylist, and the trunks and then to a lesser extent the polo shirt look great because Daniel Craig worked out, he did a great body, and it showed that. Buying that brand of polo shirt or trunks ain't gonna look like Daniel Craig. My favourite look for Craig in all his films was that first film when he's on the yacht in Venice and he's got that beautiful shawl collar cardigan on. Elements of Steve McQueen there a little bit, but he just looked so assured, still very much James Bond, very believable, very real, but still in a fantasy world. Fantastic. I think that's a really obtainable, elegant, smart look. So that's my favourite look for Craig, would be the cardigan in Casino Royale. But looking now for my customers who look to me for style advice, and they're trying to get a modern, tailored Bond look. This is often the kind of style I put them towards, without being cosplay or fancy dress. The 2-button grey suit, the pale blue shirt, the discreet tie and the squared off hanky. Elements of Craig, elements of Connery, and it's still a smart look and something we can learn from and have fun copying. Well, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did making it, because I'm a Bond fan. As always with Bond, it will divide opinions, so I'm looking forward to some good comments, particularly about my pronunciation of Casino Royale. If you'd like to hear more stuff from us about film style, or maybe a deep dive into Bond, let us know in the comments. And to receive those videos, make sure you subscribe.